So I think my icebreaker question was going to be what the most nerve-wracking thing about finding a client is. So that might be helpful with a client meeting today. Is there anything that you're nervous about, or just some people really enjoy that process too?
No, I'm pretty inexperienced with it actually. So I don't even know. I guess like the part about it is you want to look like you know what you're talking about. Like, how do you approach people? This whole like building a relationship thing and getting in front of people and
Yeah.
then being like, hi, do you want to hire me? I don't know. Just feels the awkwardness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. The good news is they know what they're doing. So when you get on the call, they're probably going to talk for about 10 minutes about what they're looking for. And then
Mhm.
they'll be like, so tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's the moment I used to choke at.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like cats. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a thing, I won't spend too much time here. Oh, where is it though? I think it's in the Kickstarter when it's talking about meeting with clients, but it's like the magic formula for talking
Ooh.
with them, where basically it's just a process of repeating what they've said to you and then explaining how you do or do not meet that criteria. So they'll get on
Okay.
the phone and be like, man, we have so many blog ideas, we can never get them out the door. We're just looking for somebody who could help. And then you'll be like, so what I hear is that you have a lot of ideas, but not a lot of people to help. I'm the one who helps. Here's what I do.
Okay.
So it's really, you're just holding up a mirror to whatever they say,
Okay.
because if they reached out, it's because they already think that you probably can help them. So it takes a little bit of pressure off. Magic
Okay. Good.
formula.
Yeah. I
I learned this
listen.
from Magic Formula Sales. If I can find that link, I'll send it to you.
Oh, awesome.
Clary's joining us.
Oh, nice.
Magic formula for the perfect sales pitch. I don't know. I'll see if I can find that link. But
Yeah.
cool. And I think a bit of what we'll talk about in the first half will help as well to give you some of that confidence. And Clary, hey,
Thank you.
welcome.
Hi.
So I have just a couple minutes of framing finding clients, because I think there are some mindset changes that we can make that just immediately take all the pressure off. Because the worst part of finding clients to me was always that sense that you have to sell someone on something you do. And my connotation with sales was always they don't want something, but you're going to talk them into it. And that is just a very outdated way of approaching things. So fortunately, you should be able to be very successful, never having to talk anybody into anything is a life goal of mine. But the first thing I wanted to mention is it's almost like a conceptual thing with the Institute, where I spend a lot of the time talking about writing and how to do the writing, what makes the writing work for executives, what makes a good writer. When for a lot of people coming to the website, the hard part is getting jobs. Like, where do I find clients? How do I talk to them? How do I get them to say yes? And the reason for that is because there's literally endless opportunities to write for people. The easy part is finding clients. And I think you'll feel that way after we're done talking today too. The hard part that people don't really get is being prepared for the work that they want you to do. So it's like you can find 1,000 clients, pitch them all, have them very excited about working with you. And then if you can't really write to the level they're talking about, or if they don't feel like they can connect you with an executive to interview, you're not going to get the project, and it's not going to be a long-term relationship. So that's why we skew so hard for formats and like how to do the stuff. But it is obviously really important to understand how to get the work too. So that's why I wanted to focus today on just, I have a niche in mind. Where could I find a bunch of clients to email is the goal for today. So the main thing is that there's 3 main ways to get hired, and we have a whole session on this, and I have the links here. But you can get hired directly by B2B companies. So like you come in, they give you assignments, they post it on their blog. Or you can get hired by B2B marketing agencies. So they have a client, you write for that client, you have 2 clients in that situation. Or you can write for B2B publications. This is all explained in the links here. And that means that they produce content for other clients. And so again, you have 2 clients. So your client is the publication who hires you, as well as their client who hired them. And let me click through so that's a little less confusing. So down here, You will see like what the real difference is between agencies, publications, and clients, and then how to position yourself and see which one you might like to do most. Because there are definitely pros and cons to each of these. The financial pro and con is basically around how much of the money you keep versus how much of the work you do to find the clients. So when you work with a B2B company, you're doing the work of finding the client. So that's a downside if you don't like that process, but you get to keep all the money. And there's literally no limit on what you can charge once you get really good at what you do. And then once you build that connection of, it really becomes about, we need to do some writing. So we definitely need Clary for this. Who cares how much she's charging these days? I'm sure it's in line with what's reasonable. Let's just go for it. Whereas as you work down the list, like a marketing agency, they're going to pay you less because they're getting paid by the client. So they're taking a cut of it. And that's just a part of it. But they also bring you the client. And then the same deal with B2B publications. This is how I've gotten pretty much all of my really big name clips is by working with publications where those big names come to the publication, assigns me to the project. I don't get, like I might get 20% of what that publication is charging, but it's still a really good rate. I get to work with that client. I've built my reputation. Good things happen. So it really is, and we go into this a lot in this link, the course of how to get hired in B2B. So that'd be a good follow-up. That's what it looks like. But which one of those you want to work for is very much a personal preference and how you want to run your writing business and how much you want to make. Because you can, I've seen people be very successful with a mix of all of these, with just one of them, with just one or two. It's really up to you. Today, though, we're going to focus on B2B companies. So that very first one where you go out in the wilderness, you find a company's website, and then you connect with them somehow to get working with them. And really what we're talking about is 3 mindset shifts, then some basics about finding companies to pitch. And then the last half is really just, let's go through some niches and find some fun companies. So Clary has a question for the agency example. If you work with a client, you find it's hard to work with that client again outside of the relationship with the agency. Yes, that's one of the complications of marketing agencies and publications is you're going to end up signing an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement and a non-compete agreement, which means anybody you met through that agency, you really shouldn't work with them again for at least, I guess, a year. And so this has come up before where like I'm working for the publication, in my case, that's Industry Dive, and somebody who worked with me through that has a hard time finding writers. So they email me privately and they're like, hey, do you want to write for our blog? And so I've had to say, no, like I have a non-compete. This is my priority, but I'd be happy to connect you with other writers. And that's where having a network of writers you can refer work to really comes in. It is balancing the pros and cons of if it was a one-time thing with an agency and you really don't like working with them and you're never going to work with them again, and it was a great experience with that brand, maybe you do that, maybe you don't, but it does depend on the paperwork you've signed because you wouldn't want to damage your reputation by running off with anybody you met through the marketing agency. So in my case, with Industry Dive, if I'm getting 60% of my income just from that company, from Industry Dive, it really wouldn't make sense to do a one-off blog post that could threaten my relationship with them. That's how I've weighed that before. But it does make you feel good because it's like, if this relationship ever goes south, basically I can just look at my clips and see this whole list of people I could go prospect and work with. And I also do connect with those people on LinkedIn because you never know when they might know somebody else who needs a writer, and then there's no conflict and you can just get right in there. Excuse me. Cool. So 3 mindset shifts, finding companies to pitch, and then finding clients live. This is going to be thrilling. These are just really quick, different ways to think about it because it's going to take the pressure off this situation where you find a company, you find the marketing manager, and you send them a note on LinkedIn or you send them an email, because it already feels like I'm a stranger, I'm interrupting your inbox, I'm going to bother you. Hey, Mary Kate. Got one more joining. So in that sales process, what's really happening is not that you're interrupting someone and bugging them and distracting them from what they're trying to do. You are plugging into a system that's already at work. So if they run a business they have to do marketing. They set aside tens of thousands of dollars a year, maybe $100,000 a year. The average is 186,000 for B2B companies just for content marketing. So they're sitting there saying, I have thousands of dollars. I need to spend this. I don't know who to talk to. And then you pop up in their inbox and say, let's spend it with me. And then you have solved a really big problem that they had. So if they run a business, they need to do marketing. If they need to do marketing, they're probably doing content marketing. The odds are just very high at this point. And if they need to do content marketing, they need white papers, blog articles, and case studies. So it's not that you are creating a stink and drawing attention to yourself when you're messaging them. You are plugging into something that's already happening. It already exists, and you are there to help with it. I think that can be helpful. And the second mind shift, this is probably what I'm best at. If we're going to start bragging, just the minute I got into B2B, it was like just this waterfall of people who really need help with writing. And it's everywhere you go, there's a company that needs a blog article. And it's really easy for me to see that. So I like to draw attention to that. We're going to be talking through some basic strategies for finding clients, but the main thing here to understand is that there's literally more work than anybody could ever do. Never doubt the flow of work that is out there. Like, the trick is finding work that you want to do and at the rate that you want to be paid. I think those are the hard parts. The hard part is not finding work to do. I like to think of this, or you want to think of this, as starting the process of interviewing clients to see if they're a good fit for you. Are you going to do the work you want to do? Are you going to get the rate that you want to be paid? Because you can just move on to the next one. There's certainly not a dearth of clients out there. Let me pause for a drink. And then the third mindset shift, this is probably the hardest one. And this is the one that took a while to dawn on me, but nothing about networking can be urgent. So I think that is what makes the transition into freelancing so difficult, because you really can't just apply for a job, get it, and get paid within 2 weeks, right? That's the process you go through when you've been laid off or there's a disruption in how you're making money. But in B2B, you can't really just meet someone. It's very rare. It happens. But you can't really just meet someone and then they pay you and you're writing. So it's much more about starting the small snowball of building your network and being available and being seen in the right places, like LinkedIn, because you can't find a client and make a sale in a hurry. If you think about it, the people who can move quickly like that are probably facing some kind of content emergency of their own, which might mean it's a red flag that they're not a good client or they're not paying really well. So anybody who can hire you really quickly, all of that is a signal that it's not going to be a good fit or a good situation. And so when you are reaching out, some of the stuff that we're going to do today, it's not that you are reaching out and asking for work necessarily. You're just building your network of people who might teach you something about marketing and writing. So a lot of these messages will turn into leads, but most of the time you're not starting the conversation off on that foot. Now, there is a situation where we just had our cold pitching webinar. Maybe you do want to pitch specifically and intentionally, but much of the time, it's more that every business day, you're going to send an invite request to a couple marketers, a couple writers with a really generic, hi, I'm new to the space and I'd love to learn from you. So over time, your network is growing like by 1% per day. So in a couple months, in a couple weeks, you're going to see that you have a lot of people there who know you and have started to interact with you on social. So let me pause. Is there anything about the mindset shifts that doesn't make sense or is different from what you've heard elsewhere, maybe? I'm especially curious, do you feel like it is hard to find clients or to know where to go to find them? Or is it still mysterious how and why they do marketing? Because there's a lot of research on that still too. I wonder, maybe we're doing good. Cool. So the 3 steps, if I boiled it down to why I feel like you could drop me in the middle of a field with a Wi-Fi connection and I would confidently find somebody to pitch, like it's not a problem to find clients, are these 3 paths. So first, consider any technology that you used at a previous job. Then use LinkedIn and g2.com to identify similar companies. So we're going to end up at g2.com for a little bit today. Second, consider those publications that you've been reading. So maybe you subscribe to a few newsletters, stuff like that have been coming into your inbox, and look at the companies that sponsor them and then see if they need other writing support. because already that's a beautiful green flag that they're spending a lot of money on content. So chances are they also have a really active blog, or at least they wish they did, or they need help with other content that they're writing and sponsoring. And then third, this one's especially sneaky, find other writers and then see who they're working for. Then use LinkedIn and G2 to identify similar companies. We would never want to use this to actually steal clients, because that's just bad taste. And it would almost definitely come back to bite you, because if once people hire a writer, they have a relationship with that writer, so you definitely wouldn't want to cut in on that. Denise shares, connecting and interacting on LinkedIn is the part that's still a mystery. I feel like I'm trying to insert myself in their conversation and it feels awkward. Interesting. Yeah, and I get that. I think what's really interesting is maybe we think of LinkedIn as a private forum. Maybe we're thinking of it as Facebook, like that is their personal network and they've shared something just with their acquaintances. But in reality, LinkedIn is like a public dinner party. So if somebody has shared something on LinkedIn, it's because they really want somebody to comment on it, to like it, to interact with them. And if anything, you're going to make their day by liking it or leaving a question or a comment. If we think about our own motivations when we put something online, if we put something out and we're like, I'm so smart, here's my idea about content marketing, and it gets crickets, we're not going to feel very good about that, right? Because we wanted people to interact or see us or talk to us about it. So I can see why it might feel that way, but I would think about LinkedIn as a public forum where people are trying to desperately sometimes to interact with other people and get a response from other people. Cool. So LinkedIn and G2. And that was the quick part. I just wanted to rush through kind of the basics of how I think about finding clients so that we can get to the good stuff. I have 5 niches that I thought would be nice and demonstrative of everybody that might attend or watch this in the future. But I'd love to start with the people who are here. So if you have a niche in mind that we want to explore, I think we should rock it. And addressing the third one, do companies ever work with more than one writer at a time, or should you not pitch a company at all? Definitely. So when we look at how people hire writers, we have B2B companies. I think in each of these cases, they might have a team of writers, internal and external. I'm going to say that's true for all of these options to get hired in B2B. Almost all of them are working with a team of more than one writer and then internal and external team of writers. They might have one person full-time on staff and then a team of 5 or 6 other writers. The trick is it's a problem of being authentic about how you found it. If you just went to some writer you don't know and then looked at all their clients and then reached out to all their clients, that's just a sketchy way to approach it, right? Because you don't know that person. If you bring that person up, you're claiming an acquaintance with them that you might not have, which is not authentic. So it's more about maybe those could be potential leads for you, but I definitely wouldn't go and just take someone else's list of clients and then go down that list and try to work for them. Maybe there's more nuance there that I'm thinking. I think it's an easy enough step to find similar companies that it wouldn't be worth disrupting your relationship. Though there is a 4th option here that's a secret option. But you could be an outsource contractor. So one thing you could do is subcontract to those B2B writers, because some writers, maybe like 20 to 30% of writers actually want to scale and build their company as a writing studio. And so you could reach out to them and ask them if they want to subcontract to you, either as an internship or just as a person. Yeah, so if you see someone's working with someone you'd love to work for, could you still reach out? Not just randomly copying their client list. Absolutely. So I think when you see someone writing for a company, that's a great sign that that company hires writers and works with other writers. The trick is sometimes it can be deceiving how that thing got published. And I'll explain that. So if you look at my portfolio, you're going to see some clips on Fast Company. But technically, I've never written for Fast Company. I wrote for Glassdoor, and then Glassdoor was syndicated to Fast Company. So it's, if you looked at my portfolio hoping to work for Fast Company, that's not really conclusive or helpful information in the publication space. So I think it's more take it with a grain of salt that somebody's working for those companies or how they met with them. And it's very similar to B2B marketing agencies. Like you'll see clips I have with Shopify and BigCommerce and companies like that, but all of that was through a marketing agency. So it's not like I have a direct connection with the Shopify marketing team as of this moment, because I worked with them through a different company. So I think that's why I say include that different wall of LinkedIn and g2.com, because you never really know how that writing relationship came to be. But in general, definitely take ideas from what other people are doing and try to make it work for you. 100%. And I want to say that's how I got started with Glassdoor, is I noticed someone I knew was writing for them. So I thought, hey, why not pitch me writing for them? And that worked out wonderfully. That's a great idea. So I'd love to see, Denise, Clary, or Mary Kate, is there an industry you're curious about that we could give the runaround? We're going fishing. And Goldie's joining us too. Notes. This is the fun part. Let's just rock. Yeah, and I want to do HR. That's my niche, so I feel like I'm cheating every time I do it, but let's do HR. So is there any particular part in HR that you're interested in, Denise? So if we're looking at HR. Cool, so Denise brought up, let me see, remote onboarding post-pandemic. Perfect. So remote onboarding is just a theme in HRs, like digital transformation or using technology to bring people into your company and train them. So truly, as a category, you can just start with remote onboarding. And so this is G2. It is a software comparison site where companies use this to make purchasing decisions and get reviews and decide what they should do. But what it ends up being for a B2B writer is what's that called? Basically a database of hundreds of different technology and different apps that are out that might want to do stuff. Also HR, just catching up. Neat. So this gives us Smart ID Engine. I don't know what that is. Whale, that's interesting. Daily Bot. Now, personally, I just, from experience, know that things that talk about bots or data isn't going to be something I want to niche in. Like they're probably going to be looking for engineers and people to talk to. So I would personally be skipping this one, but I'd keep going. A board, tech kit. And as we get towards the bottom, we're seeing some that don't have any ratings. So that tells me maybe they aren't as active with their marketing. But Ricotta Trivia, that's weird. GI Bots KYC Suite. I don't even know what that means. I'd probably skip that one personally. I don't know, Lano, whatever that is. Yeah, Denise, bye. So I would be looking at, this kind of breaks down just some basic information about that company so I could see, is this going to fit with my niche as far as what I've written about before, what I want to write about? Is this going to fit with the kind of formats that I want to do? Once I get to their website, I'll know more about that. So Smart ID Engine, fast, secure, and private software for scanning recognition ID card, passport, and driver's license. So it gets a little technical. That tells me I might not be super interested in them, but we can always go to their website. And so G2 is the source or the database that tells me what I might want to work with. Going to their website is what tells me if they're really active with marketing and might need my help. Make sure it's not blocked off. So precise ID scanning, interesting. So they have an updated website that looks nice. Science, that's interesting. So they have a news section, research and development. So this is telling me that they're a bit more on the very, very technical side of things. So if I am more comfortable writing, not fluffy, but more superficial or more targeted marketing content, this might not be a fit. But if I'm a former academic and I have some experience with research and development, which is some people in the Institute, I could come through here and see these white papers are very technical. I wonder if they need somebody who can help them make this more marketing focused, right? Because this is a really interesting idea, but this title blows. And these headers, this isn't very alluring for someone to read, right? If you're in marketing, this is very data heavy. So having somebody come through and reinterpret this in shorter paragraphs, better graphics, more interesting headers, even look at the font size is different. Like you got to know this isn't performing well for them. So if I had that technical background, if this is something that really jumped out at me, sending one of those really helpful pitch emails. Clary asks, can you actually pitch a rewrite? You can get there eventually. I wouldn't do that right off the bat because nobody wants to hear what they're doing wrong from someone new. But Bree's ethical pitching framework from our recent webinar and Chris's advice about sending emails, pitch emails, I think there could definitely be an opportunity here to say, I found your information on G2 and it looks really promising. I was looking at some of your white papers. Have you ever thought about making marketing friendly versions of that? Or what are you looking to do with your content? Maybe I could help with that. Would be a very reasonable thing to ask. And then on that call, you could pitch something like rewrites. Like for me, I have what's it called? I came up with a cute name for it. But basically like a content upgrade, just take a piece and refresh it with new data and a better position or theme to it for a white paper or a blog article. And some people just want that content refresh. And so they might hire you for that. But again, this would really depend on, are you the kind of person who takes science and research driven content and makes it really easy to understand? This would be a perfect before and after project for you, because they're clearly trying to do something. They have recent news and they have this material, but it looks like they might just be too academic to really be plugging it into the marketing space right now, which tells me they're probably somebody's secret weapon if they aren't marketing very well. But who knows, maybe it's working for them. You just wouldn't want to make presumptions about saying, I would never email someone and say, hey, this white paper is really bad. Let me rewrite it for you for $2,000. I'm great. I don't think you would get responses for that. But when you go into it thinking or expressing, I'm a marketing partner, I help companies like you take really technical, important work and translate it for the people who are actually going to buy it, I'm sold. That sounds wonderful. That's a good example of that. Or if you're like me, it makes you run the other way because you don't want to read research paper about smart IDs. But then we get to this one, and this branding is cute and fun, though these look like Band-Aids in the back. We have a knowledge and training program called Whale. That's interesting. So I'm going to go to the website and see if maybe I want to work with them. So use Whale. Cool. Smiling people, modern. I like it. I see product, service, and learn is going to be where their blog is. And they are publishing recently every 2 days or more. So that tells me they need help. But what's really interesting is the images aren't very interesting. And then the titles aren't very interesting too. So they might need help in making things more interesting or getting things out into the world. But then they've got an interesting photo here. So these 4 mega brands transform their onboarding. You can too. This is like a hidden customer case study. Neat. So I'm seeing indications that they're including style. They're trying to be really approachable and friendly. They're including lists, right? All of these content marketing best practices. Cool. So that tells me they are really interested in doing content marketing. Cool. So this is the first one I've come across where I'm like, hey, this looks really good. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn and I'm going to search for Whale Cloud, and I'm just looking for that's the right logo. Nope, not the right logo. It's tough because everybody's the same name now. So we got to find their real name, or we can find them on LinkedIn down here. Whale, what is it? I'm gonna search Whale SOP. Use Whale, cool. So sometimes they can be hard to find. You just got to check the logo versus what is their thing. Cool. And then here's the super cool part. You just click right on the see all 7 employees on LinkedIn. That is beautiful. You can do all of this without LinkedIn Pro. I just have LinkedIn Pro, so it'll tell me a little more information than you get, but you can still see and message all of these people. So in this case, I see the option to connect with some people, follow some people. In this case, I might follow the CEO. And then whenever he pops up in my feed, maybe I'll like it or I'll comment on it so he sees my name over the next few weeks. Then I can connect with the partnerships guy. That's not as helpful, but I can connect with the co-founders. That would be helpful. And so I just see that he's the CTO of Use Whale. And so I'm going to go connect, message. And I would literally just have a message. I think this requires InMail. So you'll find some of them you can do for free just without Pro. And then some of them you might need Pro. Just move on if you need Pro. But I might message something like, hi, I came across your company. I write in the onboarding space. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing by connecting on LinkedIn. Sarah. And then he either accepts or doesn't accept. And over time, you're just building up your network of these people who may be open to connecting as well. I think it comes back to what Denise said about feeling awkward that you are interrupting them or inserting yourself in their conversation. But the thing is, you don't get a LinkedIn profile open for you when you are born. You get into the workforce and you decide you want to talk to other people, you want to be available for networking. So there are people who make it a policy. I don't connect with anybody I don't know in real life. If I haven't worked with you for 2 years, don't even think about it. But 80% or more of people are on here because they want to grow their network of real people. So if you just ask, there's an 80% chance that they're just interested in what you might do. So as long as you don't look like a spammer, as long as you don't send them a message trying to sell something within 5 minutes, they're going to be happy to grow their network with you. And if that doesn't go with your policy, like maybe you're the person who only wants to connect with people, that just means you'll go slower with this, which is fine too. But for me, if you're in B2B, if you're in content, I'm interested in being connected. So I'm just going to hit all these connect buttons because you never know who's going to be interesting. Yeah, so Clary asks or says, I guess this is a mind shift, but I end up reading stuff like this and thinking they don't need help, when instead I should be thinking of it the other way around. Yeah, that is the other world of possibility. If they have a really vibrant blog, they're going to have turnover. So they need to have writers in the wings who can step in when their current writers leave or take a job or get sick or take a break, or when they decide to do more. Some people I'm working with one client right now, they have a team of 4 writers, 2 writers left just because it's not a good fit. So they had to replace them. And they're trying to lean in on content more. So they just need more, even though things are going really well for them. In fact, the better their content goes, the more writers they need because they want to keep going with that momentum. And then the opposite is true. If they don't have a blog up, it's not because they don't believe in content marketing. It's because they haven't gotten their stuff together to get the content out, which means they need you. So it really is either they need you because things are going well, or they need you because things aren't going well. Either way, they're going to be really happy to have heard from you. And if they aren't, they just won't write back. So it ends up being a really nice fit. Now, I don't actually want to work for Use Whale, so I'm not going to message them personally right now. But I did want to go back to who works there. And then this beautiful feature over here, see all similar pages. Right? So Use Whale, this is the company we found on G2. I want to see similar companies like them and see if there's anything else I might want to work with. I see transportation, trucking, and railroad. That's interesting. Oper in financial services. That's interesting. Hospitality, not as interesting, but cool. So I've now used the feature. So enabling lenders to create world-class credit experiences. Do not know what that means, but they might need a writer who can explain what that means. It also looks like it's a different language. So that may or may not be a good fit. Oh, but we can see a couple more options here. And this was just with one search. So this was just remote onboarding. You could also, just in case people haven't gone professional with remote onboarding, maybe it's just onboarding. So what's the best onboarding software? Then we're going to see Paylocity, Paycom, some fintech comes into the mix. Bamboo HR is very popular. They have a great blog. I don't know what UKG Pro is. ADP is a little big. And so there's a couple interesting things you could do here. You could either sort by popularity and then hit it again, and hopefully it'll sort by lower popularity. Not sure it's doing that. But the more popular they are, the bigger they are, and maybe the more competition for working with them. So what you can do is go to the very end of the list. Let's say I want to go to the last page. I want to see the least popular onboarding software, and then they might be great people to practice with. So maybe Personably, Purview HCM. Looks like they're either not well rated or just nobody has worked with them. Scale PEO. Man, there's too much to even check out here. So I'm going to go to their website. Let's check out just these two, and then we'll pick a new niche. Helping teams. Oh, they're shutting down. That's a bummer. So I'll skip them. Purview. Let's go to their website. Looks like a German company, so probably not for me. But you can see this is a process where you might take an hour and sort through and find some options. And then our third try, this looks pretty good. So onboarding, PTO, compliance, and more. Resources, resource center, and blog. That tells me they're doing some content. It looks like a little too organized. So I almost wonder if they're doing a marketing agency to help with their content, but you never know until you ask. And then increase your benefits buying power with a PEO. 10 things to look for in it. PEO pros and cons. They're doing some SEO work here because of all the keywords that are locked in here. So this is saying maybe they need a lot of content. Maybe they're doing really basic content. So as a beginner, this could be a great person to pitch and see if they just need some regular content. And so I'll try to find them on LinkedIn. I have their little LinkedIn icon at the very bottom of the page, except it's not working. Interesting. So they didn't fill out their page. But I can do scale PEO. But the first thing I would do is Google PEO, because maybe I don't know what that means. PEO in HR stands for a professional employer organization. So they lease employees to other people. So it's like a business outsourcing option. If I'm curious about that, if I wanted to learn more about that, I could continue to pursue this client. LinkedIn. And then I just look up scale PEO. I love it. They have 25 employees on LinkedIn. So I'm going to look up who their employees are and then also look at these similar pages to see if something jumps out at me. So staffing and recruiting, management consulting, human resources. These are all, you could almost measure their success, with social media. And that could tell you what level they are. So if you're at a more advanced level, maybe it's going to be worth reaching out to BBSI and PRG insurance recruiters. So if they're a little more well-known, they have a little bit more of a reputation already. And then if you're beginning, maybe you want to target the ones with very few followers because they have a lot less to lose. So maybe they'll just let you do a couple trial assignments. You can see if you would like to do this work. And then same deal. So we have 25 people to pick from. What I'll also do, if you end up having just way too many people employed, you can come down to their industry and find marketing. And then you'll pull up just the people in marketing, which maybe there aren't any, but then we can read it. And this is why in the Kickstarter, we have lessons around a basic company structure, who's in charge of what, because that's going to help you figure out who to reach out to. So in this case, we wouldn't want to reach out to an account executive or an implementation and support specialist, even though those are people you might end up interviewing if you work for them. But I would want to talk to learning and development, program and project management, communication specialist for sure. Then we can keep going through the pages. Lots of sales executive. Sales executive is a maybe if I don't find anybody else. Account executive, accounts receivable. Cool. So it's really just these two people that I would want to try to connect with, because in my thinking, they might have something to do with marketing, communications, or sales. So they might be able to connect me with somebody who writes. And especially this lady with the typewriter is probably, she identifies as a writer. So she's probably someone who could connect me to the right person. Cool. And here's an example of they have a full-time in-house marketing and communication specialist. If that person is overloaded and they want to pull off a white paper, they might talk with that person and bring in somebody from the outside to do a quick white paper. I've have several clients where that's the situation, and just once a quarter they reach out. It's time to do the white paper. They do it. We move on, and it's done. So Clary asks, does a bigger marketing sales team mean less or more opportunities for you as a writer? It's hard to know without asking. It is hard to know without asking because how people set up their company depends on how much the founder or CEO believes in content marketing, right? Because some companies, they might treat their marketing team almost on par with the sales team, like it's one organization. But in other companies, they're very contentious. So sales and marketing are fighting over resources and they don't agree on a lot of things. That can happen. So it really depends. I would say as long as they have a CMO, that's what you're looking for, or anybody that has content in their name. Marketing specialist, that's going to be a good sign that they do. Yeah, and sometimes employee writers need additional support, definitely. Yeah, I'm just kicking off a project with a larger company that has a team of writers, but that team of writers is already assigned to something. So when they wanted to do a new project, they had to bring in another writer who does stuff. So I wouldn't feel limited by anything. That's life advice. Just don't feel limited by anything. I think as long as they have, I don't know, because even I've worked with companies where all they have is the founder and co-founder. So they don't even have a marketing team and they still need content. So it's much more about what do you want to write? What comes really quickly to you and just you wake up and you're ready to do it. And then go find people who fit that profile, because there's people to fit any profile. Like you could find an employee who has a side hustle who might want a blog article on the side with ghostwriting. It really is a lot of options. But assuming that you're going for that mix of maybe 5 direct clients, and then you build that income of $5,000 to $10,000 a month, then you want to look for somebody that has an established marketing team and not too many writers on staff. But if they have 1 or 2, that's not a problem at all. That's why so many blog articles just say it depends, because it ends up depending. Cool. So that was just a couple for HR. Love to go back up. I think we had somebody say manufacturing, built environment from Mary Kate, real estate, construction. And I love the specifics like HR within the field. Oh, that is very exciting. So when we say HR within the field, I think that's a great opportunity to talk about themes. And we're going to get even more into this in December. I'm going to have niched writers from 6 different fields come and talk about the themes in all of those fields. But essentially, what's happening is that in every niche you could hope to pick, there are also these intersections and topics that everybody has to deal with. So recruiting and onboarding. It's almost like business stuff. I'll find a better way to say that. But every single niche that you could possibly hope to talk to, there is a cross section at business stuff that they have special technology and special problems with. So for example, I wrote a white paper about recruiting and retaining managers in banking. So that's like this cross section of a niche and a topic and a subject that got really specific. But if you go looking for those companies, you're going to find dozens of companies that do that with consulting, with apps, with technology, all these things they do just to solve the problem of recruiting in banking. And it can be the same in construction. So I have done a white paper. It did not turn out well, so I don't write in construction. So Mary Kate, I'll refer those to you. But I did a white paper on project management software for construction. And it was very specific, very niched, and they would have a lot of work if I had enjoyed that and wanted to keep going with it. And then same deal, if you take themes like digital transformation and apply that to retail and grocery, boom, you have this whole, the third-party delivery apps, things that have affected our lives as consumers, how that works on the back end and how they organize and do inventory and coupons and just all of these systems we would never have thought of as consumers. There's technology and products and people who need to market what they're doing. So I've written in all of those different niches. So if I'm going to look at, I'm going to take this example from Mary Kate, the built environment, also known as building and construction, I don't know, sustainability, all that's in there, real estate and construction at the intersection of HR within the field. Whew. So a way to approach this could be to start with HR as the niche and then look at HR for real estate. There's probably some HR real estate recruiters. And then there's also construction, HR, finding and recruiting and organizing work, absolutely, but managing hours and workload within construction, that's going to be an enormously popular technology solution. So I'm going to go with technology or construction and managing the workload because I think that's going to be most interesting. And really, construction is specific enough. So the first thing I want to introduce you to is Tess Whitler. I think she's a wonderful model of niching in construction and showing that even by niching, you expand like who you're able to serve. So even though she helps building industry professionals become top performers, nurture leads, and stand out as innovative thought leaders, she's been able to build her business by having this specificity because she can work with these really technical topics. That got windy, but I think this is a great example. And so this could be somebody that you go and check out who she's worked with to get examples. Autodesk, BIM 360. That's interesting. So Autodesk, construction management software. So now so I stopped at a writer's site. I looked up one company she works with. Now I have this whole keyword, construction management software, and I can take that with me everywhere I go. Construction management software. Boom. Oh my gosh. Is anybody else getting chills? This is exciting. So I looked up construction management software, and then that shows me 5 other categories that I could check out. So I could look at some companies in construction data analytics software. What? Construction drawing management, construction ERP, which is enterprise resources planning or program, construction estimating software. This is all like different sides of the construction business where it intersects with technology. Construction project management, risk and safety, and then job site management. So I'm going to open all of these as categories. And the cool thing about categories is if there's a category, there's at least a dozen companies there, because otherwise there wouldn't be a category. It would just be a company. So you can tweak by small business, mid-market, different ratings. But Procore, that's actually the one I did that piece for. So you could look up Procore. Oracle apparently has a product for that. Now, Oracle is a very large company, so unless I had a lot of clips behind me, I probably wouldn't reach out, but you can try all you want. Autodesk, FieldWire. Let's look at those two. I'll skip Procore because I've already worked with them, so I don't want to cheat. And then Raiken. I really like that logo. It can be as simple as that. So I'm going to go to Raiken's website and FieldWire's website. Huh. Attend a demo and get a gift card. Interesting. Now this is so it took me to the plans page. I want to go to the landing page. Software designed for construction. Cool. So by clicking around this website, I'll learn what they do, why they do what they do. I can see that they have a really mature and modern approach. Like we have moving graphics and the colors are great and they have this credibility stuff. So then I'm going to go to resources. Whoa. So we have blog, case studies, ebooks, webinars, boom. And so again, the first instinct could be, they have everything they need. I would just be bugging them if I reached out. But in reality, look at all this content that they have to maintain and organize, and look at all the material they have to repurpose and all the writers they probably need to keep this stuff going. Cool. So this would be like my background information. If I had a kickoff call with them, I'd just be trying to scan through how they did stuff, how I'd improve it, what I'd change, all that kind of stuff. Resources, ebooks. Nice. Well, so they seem like a really good prospect. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn and just try to connect with some people who work there. Nice. They're based in California. So they have 111 employees. So CEO, innovator, vice president of marketing. That's somebody I'd connect with. There's 100 people who work there. So this is probably a good example of when to search for industry. So marketing and advertising. Cool. And then basically I'm looking at their marketing team. So they have a marketing writer in Tennessee. They have somebody who does pay-per-click and SEO in Colorado. So it looks like they're all over the country. That's a great sign for freelancing. They have a manager of marketing content. Great. So they have all that content in just one writer, which tells me they probably work with another company or a marketing agency. And so these could be good people to connect with. And then if you want to be really sneaky, you can check out the person who works there and see what their experience looks like. So it looks like they just hired their first full-time content marketer. It's fun to know this stuff because I feel like when I got laid off from the marketing company I was working at, it just really blindsided me. I had no idea what was happening. But now, having been in this space, I can look at this and say, oh, they're doing a marketing experiment. They made the decision to bring in somebody full-time. They're only 6 months through in there. So they probably won't expand with freelance writers at 6 months. But if I connect now and their program goes well, in the next 6 months, maybe they're going to expand once they see how this is working. So now is the perfect time to get connected to this person, start to share PDFs back and forth, or just generally get into their mode. And I can see her background. She was a freelancer, interesting. And she was a freelance photographer, interesting. So that could be good or bad. I don't know. But it looks like she got her job by getting a bunch of certifications from SEMrush. Yeah, check it out. So I don't know, this is probably creepy to think about people this much, but so you can see she got hired and right away did her content marketing and SEO fundamentals. So if you go to SEMrush, you can probably learn more about what strategy that they're putting into place. It's really interesting. Cool. So this would be a perfect opportunity. Connect with her, say, I love the content you're doing. Let's stay in touch. In 6 months, when they decide their content is working well or is not working well, then you're perfectly positioned to have been chatting with her for a couple months and on her team. And what was the other one we were going to look at from construction? FieldWire. So same deal. Let's go to their landing page. Great. Modern site, looking good. They have a chat bot, resources. See how they've organized their site to make it easy for you to find out if they need help or not. So you can go to their blog. So they're publishing once a week, but they just started publishing once a week. So it's July. It was twice a month, and they skipped a bunch. And then 2 times in September, 2 times in October. So that kind of like start, stop tells me that they probably need some help. Let's see, webinars. Are they doing partner webinars? October 20th. So this could be a situation where you register for that webinar, go attend stuff, ask questions, get the follow-up emails, right back to the follow-up emails. Find Ben Haddock on LinkedIn. I'm coming for you, Ben. Boom. And so in this case, I could send him a message and say, Ben, I signed up for the webinar happening October 20th. I can't wait. Do you have any recommended reading in advance of it? I don't know. But Ben is preparing for a webinar and he's probably nervous about speaking to an audience he doesn't know. So you reaching out, asking questions, engaging with what he's doing, it's all just win. Like he feels like he's contributing, he's made a connection, you guys have something going on. And then even without pitching anything, once the webinar is over, he's now exchanged a few notes with a writer who cares about what he's doing. And who else would you want to hire besides a writer who cares about what you're doing? Now that's in construction. Cool. So I see we're right at time. So I totally understand if anybody wants to or needs to head out. I was going to do 1 or 2 more just to make sure I get this broad range of niches. So feel free to stick along and play along. and built environment. Cool. I'm going to scroll back up because I think somebody else had shared something. So we had HR, and Clary said, I'm not decided yet. I'd love to explore HR, higher ed, and green cities. HR was on my list, so I'd love to do that while we're here. I'm sorry, higher ed. Higher ed and K through 12. And K through 12 is so interesting because I come from being a former teacher. I taught ninth grade English for 2.5 years. And I would never have thought there was a B2B component of K through 12 because it's just teaching, right? Teachers teach, kids attend, parents call and complain. It's my experience, at least. So how does technology play into it? I don't know. But what we miss is in the past 10 years, that business stuff is making its way into the nonprofit sector. So project management, ERP, enterprise resource planning and budgeting, technology and digital transformation, Bing, all of these things have moved into K through 12 in higher ed, and so have products and services that pop up to support them. So in this case, at least, digital transformation has had a huge impact on K through 12 and higher ed. And anytime anybody is selling anything to an organization, it's B2B. So all we have to do for K through 12 is, if you have teaching experience, think back to that technology you've used. Smart boards, Podio is like a LMS learning system. Blackboard for K through 12 is a learning system. All of these technologies have moved into K through 12, which means they now are B2B. So I wonder, that one feels a little easy, but digital transformation is one. LMS is going to be a code word as well. Consulting is a code word. And that's really for K through 12. With higher ed, you can add all of that business stuff like ERP planning, data management. I think higher ed is a little more sophisticated than K through 12 when it comes to data management and budgeting and planning, but it's happening. G2. Cool. So in this case, let's say we're starting from scratch and I don't know too much about higher ed. So I can just put higher education in here and it's going to do the work for me. It can show me categories over here on the side. So do I want higher education, IT, professional services, implementation services, which is going to be the consulting side of things. HubSpot consulting, that's strange. Categories. And then I discover this cool category, online program management in higher education. What is that? And then suddenly we see companies. So there's Blackboard, Wiley has education services, Zion Star, an education technology startup. That's an interesting idea. So then I can take education technology startup and see what that is. And then we get a bunch of lists like 37 edutech companies changing the way we learn, best edutech companies and startups. And this is all data or information that you can use to find more companies like this that you might want to speak with. Wow. So some of these are very clearly B2C, like Masterclass, right? We've all gotten those ads. But Coursera, Schoolology, InStructure, Duolingo, those all have B2B applications. So I could take, let's start with Kahoot. I'm going to go back to G2 and just search that product and go back to that classic formula where I'm looking for similar products to Kahoot. This one might be one I write for. But also when I scroll down here, top rated Kahoot alternatives, see all alternatives. Then this is going to give me my list of companies that I might want to work with. For me, I have that background. I have a master's in arts and teaching experience. So that's something I'd bring in and say, hey, Canvas LMS, wouldn't you like somebody who's an expert at teaching? And I have that marketing experience, so I could help you with your materials. Whatever your education or experience might be, you can use that to your advantage too. So then we have this nice list: Quizzes, Canvas LMS, Poll Everywhere, Quizlet, Schoolology. These are all companies. Talent LMS, that's interesting. So I'm going to learn more about Schoolology and I'm going to learn more about Talent LMS because maybe these are things that I could work with. Where'd you go? Schoolology. Yeah, Clary's saying this is so cool. I'm so glad. It really is endless. And I tried to find my favorite photo, and it's a cloud map of just all these competing brands. And it's literally just hundreds of logos in all these different categories and spaces. And it's just, this is what we mean when we say B2B represents billions of dollars, is they have billions of dollars. Like they have competitors, they have sales teams dedicated to making them money, and all of that gets funneled back into marketing, which is just content. So it's like this, it's this beautiful machine that you just figure out where you want to plug in, and then you make the most of that. Oh, this is going to be good. Schoolology. So this is a platform that helps school districts get up and running with distance learning. So it's B2G, so business to government, because school districts technically, at least in America, are state and federally run. But there's an interesting thing going on here where they have resources that are for teachers, as well as this is for teachers. And then they have resources for parents. And then they have resources for the district. So it's almost like at all of these different levels, you might be able to bring your contributions and help them with what they do. But all of it funnels back up to Schoolology helps districts get up and running. So it is that B2B or B2G. Check this out. This is one of the best signs you could see, State of Digital Learning 2020. And so this tells me they're actively doing research. Like they surveyed 17,000 people across the US and made a report. So I'd be downloading that report. And then when I reach out to their marketing person, I'd say, I read that report and it was really good. So clearly Schoolology is going to be a good one for me. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn and look up the marketing managers on Linkology. And again, all of this is available without LinkedIn Premium. I think LinkedIn Premium just makes it easier sometimes, but you can always do the basics without that. See all 147 people. And then I'm going to filter to, I'm moving fast, but looks like they don't have marketing up here. So let me just scan manually. Senior Director, Manager of Professional Development. Interesting. Chief Leadership Consultant. Senior UX Writer. So I know they have one writer. Interesting. They've got a lot of teachers and substitute teachers. So maybe that tells me they really value experience. Interesting. So maybe I do want to search for marketing. Nobody's in there though. So maybe information technology is what I'll look for. Yeah, so this would tell me I want to look a little bit further up the chain and maybe reach out to a VP or a founder or senior director of professional services at Power School. Interesting. And cool. So I see she's been employed there for 4 years. So their content marketing program is not new. That's something that they would find very valuable. And same senior director of professional services, 7 years. So this would be somebody, client success specialist is how she moved up. And she was a former 4th grade teacher. Interesting. So this would be a great person to reach out to. And if they're a teacher, they're very friendly. I'd be connecting with her right away. And Clary asks, would you recommend LinkedIn Premium? I did the trial and thought I would cancel it, but it ended up being fairly useful and fun and interesting because it's not a significant issue for my business budget to do that. I think it's $60 per month. I do keep it. I don't think it's necessary. So I think if it would make your life easier and make you feel better, definitely it's been worth it and wonderful. But I just don't want to give the impression that's required to do any pitching. I probably didn't do that until 2 years ago. So I was 5 years in before I really decided to do that. And then the same process for Talent LMS. I would go through that and find their people. But what I love so much and want to emphasize is even if none of these people reach out, I have gotten so much out of this process. I have started to understand the competitive landscape for each of these companies, like who their competitors are, how they're being compared. If I read any of these reviews, I'd see how their product is doing. I'd understand what they're doing and what their customers like and what makes them special. I have read some of their company blog information. So I'm building my niche expertise, even if I don't work with them. And then I'm building my network because I'm connecting with them as I go. So even if I never work with anybody I've talked about today, I've just added 10 people to my network who know I'm a writer who might refer me to somebody else whenever they need a writer, because I've made a good impression and haven't tried to sell them on a scam. Multi-level marketing. Cool. And I wonder if we picked one more, is there anything that's coming up for you guys? Or we could go with, I think FinServe and banking and payments is really interesting. I've been doing a bit more writing in those niches. I might go for that. You take a little water break. Clara, you asked the best questions because I have good news for that one as well. Clary asks, if you change your niche, there's no harm done with these contacts on LinkedIn. I need to pause before I share this because it's so wonderful. The coolest part of all is when you connect with marketing managers, their expertise is marketing. Their expertise is not often their niche. So I've worked with marketing managers in HR, and then when they moved jobs 2 years later to financial services, they called me and said, hey, do you write in financial services? I need some content on this side too. So I really see the marketing manager as a niche neutral kind of person. They're looking for their niche when they're hiring for a specific position, but in their life, they're just collecting writers and resources and people who could help them because they are on their own career journey that might take them through, like from education to B2C education to Airbnb. Like they have their own career goals, and you being a writer who's interested in this stuff helps them with those goals too. So I would say once you change your niche, no harm done. If anything, the broader your network, the better, because people are changing jobs and they might, like, think of this, they might leave a company and not be allowed to work with any of the writers that they knew at that company because of their own non-compete. And so they have to find whole new writers. So every time they change a job, they might need to reach out to you and ask if you work in that niche. Yeah, so Clary shares, wanting to do things perfectly holds me back in general. And this could be one of those cases. Absolutely. Yeah, the sooner we realize there is no perfect, the better, because perfect is 100% dependent on what you want, and what you want can change from year to year. So the perfect move today won't, like, by nature won't be perfect a year from now, but it was still perfect for today and tomorrow. Totally. So let me think about financial services and banking, some of the cool trends going on there, and we'll explore this more in the December thing as well. In banking and financial payments include AI and machine learning. So if you are a consumer or a customer at a bank, at a major bank, you've probably seen cool stuff when you log in with your app, if you even have an app, where it has your name, it has personalized recommendations for banking products and stuff that you can have. All of that is the result of AI and machine learning, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. There's also customer onboarding. There are customer journey mapping is a new thing that we've been writing about. And then of course there's crypto and DeFi. And these are all themes and trends that you would just come across as you read resources like Smart Brief and Industry Dive. These are all things that come across in the headlines. So it's not that you need to know about all of this. It's just that you would have these keywords to check out as you're looking up new sources. So if I was interested in any of this, it's tough. I don't want to cheat because I've written about all of this recently, but I might start with state of the industry, banking and financial services. And so, wow, 2021 Banking and Capital Markets Outlook by Deloitte. That would be fascinating. State of Financial Services 2020. That's interesting. And so this would give me stuff to read and kind of code words to start to Google. That is a weird image. It's very dramatic, but this is a great executive summary because here are some more intersections that might be interesting. So if you looked up investment portfolios, if you looked up banking growth, banking and productivity, like it just gives you more keywords to explore if you really like this subject. And some of this, like, it makes my head spin, but look at this pretty graphic. So this is something really easily digestible to see, is there anything here that jumps out at me? So digitization in banking, contactless technologies, that's interesting. Oop. Corporate responsibility in banking. If I like sustainability and green initiatives, that might be something I really want to look at. Emergence of pop-up ecosystems. I don't know about any of this. Global movement of people and goods. That's cool. I don't know. So I didn't read any of that, so I didn't really come up with anything, but maybe I just look up financial and then it pulls up these categories. So maybe I want to look at financial analytics, or maybe I want to look at banking, mobile banking, digital banking platforms, and core banking. I think the biggest category seems to be digital banking platforms. That would give me the most options. And so this is interesting because it's not banks, like it's not the place where you go to put your money in. It's digital banking platforms. So these are companies that go and work with those banks. So if you have a Bank of America app, Bank of America did not design or make that app. They worked with a digital banking platform to create their own app, and then maybe they manage it, that kind of thing. So you could explore Incinco banking operation system, Numerated, Coney, Gizio. I'm just curious about that, so I'm going to click on it. Finacle. It's not a good name. Q2 turnkey lender. It's interesting. Appzillion, Bano, Digital Edge, Mambu. That's fun. So I just picked a few that looked fun that sent signals to me they might be interesting. So Gizio, solutions platform developers. Interesting. So this is a neat example of a company. I'm not seeing a blog. No, I am. A blog or resources, client resources. But it is worth noting that companies that are more focused on consulting and services, they might need less blogging and more sales assets. For example, so Schoolology might use SEO to bring people in to buy their program. So they want more blogs and white papers and stuff like that. But with Gizio, if they're only selling like really big engagements, they might focus more on their account-based marketing strategy. So getting their salespeople out and talking to people. But what they really want is, or are, brochures and sales assets and things that salespeople could send a client right after meeting with them to help them make a decision. And so that's just the message I get when I see their website, and I don't see the blog really heavily featured. I think that's more of a gut instinct too. So they still might be a good client. But about Gizio blog. And that's interesting because this takes me from their website to a Discover website, which is very odd. So I can't tell if this is them writing or not. So this might be an example of a company where it doesn't look like they're investing much in blogging. Maybe that's not important. And then their resources are only for Gizio clients. That's really interesting. So I would be checking them out. When I reached out to them, I would ask things like, do you have all the sales assets you need, or the things that you sell with? And I'm not seeing a writer. Interesting. I'm not seeing writer or marketer of any kind. So it may be that they outsource to a marketing team. Personally, this would take them off my list. This means I'm not super interested in working with them. If you're following up on just all your leads, maybe you go forward and meet with them. And then let's look at Mambu. Mambu, a cloud platform designed to let users rapidly build, integrate, launch, and service any lending portfolio to any market. Change means growth. Interesting. So this is a really modern website. This is beautiful. It looks like they have, some thought leadership going on. They have a report, a series, and an article. Cool. They're going. They have a lot of verticals. So when they have a lot of verticals, that's neat because that means they need specific content for each of these verticals. So you might be better at e-commerce or lenders or neobanks, digital challengers with big ambition. That is fascinating. But yeah, this strikes me as one that I would really like to follow up on if I were looking for this. So let's look at Mambu. Checking the logo. I could follow their company as well. Wow, so 752 people work there. They have a summit coming up, so I'd be signing up for that. And then I'm going to look at just their marketing team. Service categories, marketing. Huh. Why not look at content marketing? Cool. So I see words and code. Yeah, so I need to go back up a level and look at like directors or VPs and stuff. But they do have a full-time technical writer, but that's more documentation and internal stuff. So that tells me there still might be room for a copywriter or a content writer. Cool. But I would be connecting with people like growth and strategy, product, chief people officer might be helpful. VP of talent acquisition is more of a maybe. But I want to add, Clary, I'm still thinking about your question that no harm done if you change your niche. It's so cool because after doing this for 8 years, I've gone through the process of connecting with a managing director or a chief technology officer or a chief people officer. And so as I've evolved my niche, it's like I could go back and look at these people I've connected with, and they now help me in a different way because I can find a CTO to interview for a piece about technology, even though like maybe we never worked together, maybe they changed companies, maybe they were never the right person to talk to anyway. I have this network of people who are at a level in a company that might be open to being a subject matter expert in the future. So when I look at, product developer, partner operations, managing director, like those are all people that might be interesting to be connected to if it looks like they are open to that. And especially anybody who has "we are hiring" in their tagline is going to be open to connecting with you. It's a nice tell. Global head of solutions. Yeah, so that's how I would attack or approach banking and payments. And these are all niches that are represented by industries on Industry Dive and Smart Brief and all of those. So you could very easily find other content to fill up your bucket of expertise and feel more confident going into that call, understanding how their industry is laid out. It's interesting. Cool. So I think that is all for today. Thank you guys for staying with me an extra half hour. That is intense, but I want to make sure we covered a bunch of niches. And I think the key to all of this is removing the awkwardness by removing the pretense that you're going to sell them something. So tell people who you are and what you want. And just by doing that, you're now not a spammy, weird person trying to connect with them, right? Hi, I'm new to this. Can we connect? Hi, I write in this space. Do you need writers? There's a kind of clarity and honesty with that makes it clear that you're not going to be an annoying person to be connected to. And at the end of the day, that is what we all want. We want to build our network of normal, real people who are interested in the same things that we are. And again, that reinforces why niching can be so helpful in phases, because it gives you something in common. If you are just a general writer, I write copy for anybody, that sends me a red flag of maybe I don't want to be connected with you because I don't know what to expect from you. You might send me like a request to work together. You might send me a company you're working for. I don't know. But the more of that confusion or uncertainty that you can clear out, the more likely somebody's going to be to connect with you, to reach out with you, to want to have you in their network. And the biggest part of that is just that if they're on LinkedIn, they want to have a professional network. So there's no lying about that, because we're all there to build our network of people who are interested in what we're interested in. So it may always be awkward, but don't let that stop you from building what you want to build. And perfect. And just to tie it back to what I shared at the beginning about how we often focus on the writing side instead of the freelancing side, the hardest part is to balance that regular outreach with regular practice, so that when somebody finally reaches out and asks you to write for them, you can do what they ask and that you can do it well. And that you can do that with as little stress as possible, because it's all about how you feel while you are working. Totally. So Clary says the last part is the hard part. What I'm wondering about is balancing outreach with practice. And I think that's why it helps to set up any rhythms that you want to have. Either it's maybe 10 minutes a day I'm on LinkedIn and I send a free request, or 1 hour every Monday I do my LinkedIn stuff and then I don't think about it the rest of the week. It's just about finding a system that works for you and that's going to feel comfortable. But what you wouldn't want to do is buckle down and write between now and next March and then pop up and realize you don't have anybody to talk to about it or to be connected to on LinkedIn. Because if you start that now before you're ready, then if people reach out to you and they're like, hey, do you write? And you can say, yes, I don't have my clips ready yet, but I'd be glad to send them your way. And even then the power balance shifts because they're curious about you. They're asking you for your information, which is very different from feeling like you're putting your information on somebody else, which none of us, only the wrong people like doing that. If you like doing that's a bad side. Cool. So I'm happy to answer any other questions, but that's going to be all from me today. Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, it's so good to see you and thanks for coming.